elections a certain way. And, of course, our governor has said for the last 3 years he is going to support and is entitled to support candidates who support his policies. And so we have quite a bit of experience watching our governor do this, and so we knew what that meant as well as far as the position of the candidates.
So what
now? With that said,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say. So what do we do when you have facts that are well sourced, and yet we have letters, like we had a letter that go out this week from the Breanne Davis campaign talking about lies and distortions, that are going around in the campaign, and people who support one candidate over the other. I mean, but these aren't lies. These are actual positions that she's taken.
Well, we've only been involved in this arena. We don't make a living in politics. Our members of our organization, we work for a living, and then we do this as a contribution to helping to make Arkansas a better place. But we've been doing this since about 2014, and we have watched that one of the number one strategies of the political industry is projection. So you can be assured when they start accusing their opponent of a certain thing that that's what they're guilty of. It's just as dependable as anything. But in 2014, one of the first races we were involved in, the number one line from the opponent was, private option is not Obamacare. And that was rather a staggering statement, since private option was Medicaid expansion. It is Medicaid expansion, and that is one of the three tenets of Obamacare. And then in 2016, we see the election of Eddie Joe Williams, Jane English, with the governor standing behind them saying they have never voted for Obamacare. Mm-hmm. Well, they had voted several times.
Yeah, it wasn't
true.
That wasn't a true statement that Asa made.
Absolutely.
Asa had to take the conservative position in order to win. He had to mislead and claim the far right position of being opposed.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the program. Good morning, Arkansas. Thank you so much for being with us. My name is Paul, and this is the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We're building a liberty machine here. We need your help to do that. One of the ways you can do that is to call us or text us 870-275-9799. It's 870-275-9799. Let me see here. Somebody texts us asking, what is the opening guitar riff from your intro? Interesting about that. So that's music that we bought. I don't think it exactly has a name. I mean, it does have a name, but not like a popular name, so I'm not really sure. But yeah, we compiled a lot of different things together to get to this new morning intro thing. All right, so, oh my goodness, ladies and gentlemen, okay, so it's Election Day. I mean, it's Election Day. I know the national press is focused on that special election up in Pennsylvania, right? But here in Arkansas, we're focused on the special election in Russellville in Senate District 16. That's all of Pope, all of Newton County, parts of Van Buren, Carroll, and it escapes me, the last county. I should know that. Hang on. I've got it in front of me here. Boone, yeah. Parts of Carroll, Boone, and Van Buren, right? Yeah, so all of Newton, all of Pope, parts of Van Buren, parts of Boone, parts of Carroll. So it's a big deal. The reason it's a big deal is because, well, I mean, I guess it's just like one big family vote, right? You have Ace's candidate in Breanne Davis. It's not only Ace's candidate, it's the Little Rock Monolith Marble Palace Lobby, their candidate. It's also the mainstream media's candidate. And she is also the Democrat Party's candidate. I mean, not officially, but unofficially, we have documented Democrats on Facebook, as well as the article from Michael Wickline. You have Michael Wickline yesterday in his piece talking about how Arkansas Tech students are interested. I mean, we have a story of a lady coming up to the Bob Bailey tent, ripping up a mailer and saying she's a liberal and had just voted for Breanne. I mean, we have those are eyewitness accounts of that. Very documented proof that the Democrats are voting in a Republican primary in an attempt to get the centrist. That's what the Facebook post said with the Hillary Clinton profile pic, Barbara, what's her face. So we have this documented out there that's going on. So, but I don't think that overrides the conservatism, the limited government approach of, I believe, District 16. I mean, I've been talking to people in District 16 all day yesterday, and you know, there are plenty of people that get it. And I don't know how this race is going to turn out. The voter turnout is high. Very high. I don't know what it was yesterday yet, but for the last day of early voting. But today's election day. I was talking to some people that just don't do the early voting thing. They only go vote when it's time to go vote. They go to vote on election day. So I know there's a lot of people out there that feel that way. And so we're going to, everybody's going to be waiting. The whole state is going to be waiting on these results. And so we will see what transpires from here. One of the themes, as I have been covering this special election, has been corruption in Arkansas politics. And we have gotten into the specifics of that. I think we have done a good job of reporting to you how the corrupt system, seemingly you have the same players and the same circles, and you have some people that, you know, travel in different circles, but they overlap these circles. If we're talking about Micah Neal, Jake Files, John Woods, of course, the public corruption trial of Senator John Woods coming up. Then, of course, we have this new interesting, information with Preferred Family Health Care, the attorneys that represent them, as well as the Bureau of Legislative Research and the FBI inquiries. FBI, well, see, we had documents, I guess Judge Timothy Brooks in the John Woods case saying last week that the FBI inquiries into the Bureau of Legislative Research and others have yielded millions. He said millions of documents. So we know there is a massive amount, there's a big investigation into public corruption in local politics here in Arkansas by the FBI. We know it's been going on for some time. I mean, that's where all these rumors are coming from, rumors that appear to be true. And then, of course, you had, the Eddie Cooper coming out, and you had that guy from New Jersey coming out. Oh, speaking of that, we're talking about corruption in politics. You realize that there is now a filing that accuses arrested lobbyist Milton Russell Rusty Cranford of trying to have someone murdered. Doug Thompson reports that a filing accuses lobbyist of murder for hire plot. This guy is now being accused of attempted murder. That's why I tweeted earlier ago, when people come up to me and they say, hey, I'm thinking about getting in politics, boy, isn't it so much isn't it so much bigger now? I mean, it used to be, I'm thinking, hey, Paul, I'm thinking about getting politics. Okay, what are your politics? Well, I'm pro-life. Okay, yeah, so's everyone else. I mean, it's my number one issue, but so's everyone else. Okay, next question, what's your tax policy? Now I don't even know to go to tax policy. I guess if you're pro-life, you would be anti-murder in the womb and outside if you're a lobbyist, who's about to get pinched for some sort of money laundering scheme. We need you to be pro-life for that as well. But no, seriously, honestly, you got to realize, this is what I've been screaming. You have to realize the level of corruption you are entering into if you want to get into Arkansas politics. And I know it's not a popular thing for me to say because these guys down there are like, well, we're not Washington, D.C. We're this is Little Rock. We try to keep things simple. No, you guys don't. You guys is actually a smaller group of people that know how the system works, which means there's vast amounts of opportunity for corruption. The smaller the group of people that intricately knows how something works, the more opportunity there is for corruption. And we're seeing all that roll out right now. Little Rock is a swamp. And honestly, if you look at, for example, corruption to this point has been using your office to get a financial advantage, legal or illegal. For example, Michael Lamoureux did it the legal way. He used his law firm and the 501c3 Faith and Freedom Coalition that was funded by lobbyists. Former Senator Michael Lamoureux, former Chief of Staff of Governor Asa Hutchinson, Michael Lamoureux, fundraised, got these lobbyists to give $140,000 to this nonprofit, and the nonprofit turned around for the year and paid him $120,000 of it, okay? And technically, there's nothing wrong with that, right? Just like technically there's nothing wrong with getting a contract. Let's say, for example, we highlighted this. Breanne Davis, she's on the school board. She's a software salesperson, and her company gets a $50,000 contract while she's on the school board. Yes, she didn't vote for it. Yes, she left the room. And all of this stuff, it's technically fine, but it's carving a financial niche out for your company, for job security, whatever, okay? And so I think that there's something wrong with that. I think there's ethical questions with that. But see, now we're figuring out that when you start talking about a $2 billion program, and remember, everything that anybody does to try to keep a socialist health care program from a socialist president, a la Obamacare, Medicaid expansion, private option, Arkansas Works, whatever you want to call it, is to protect a $2 billion windfall for Blue Cross Blue Shield. That's what this is all for. And I said that Michael Lamoureux, what he did was there was nothing wrong with it. So far, there's nothing wrong with it. Let's just put it like that. Okay? Let's put it like that. So far, there's nothing wrong with it. Yeah, I'm hedging my bets there. I'll be honest. I'm hedging my bets there. So, a $2 billion windfall for Blue Cross Blue Shield, that's what this is all about. And now, go back to this article, Joe. I'm sorry. I was rambling. And yada, 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 all of this money for Medicaid entities, right? And we know that the GIF scandal, the FBI investigation into GIF funds led them to the Medicaid investigation, led them to Medicaid fraud. Yada, yada, yada. Indicted lobbyist Milton Russell Rusty Cranford tried to arrange the murder of an alleged co-conspirator in an illegal lobbying and kickback scheme, according to federal court filings Monday. Now, this has to do with this New Jersey guy. The New Jersey guy, Jones is his last name, who pled guilty back in December. We come to find out in January, before Rusty Cranford was arrested, according to this document, he tried to have the guy killed. Now, you would think people from New Jersey would be killing Arkansans. No. Ha, 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 ha. I beg to differ. This is Arkansas. We kill people from New Jersey. That's how we do business here in Arkansas. New Jersey doesn't kill us. We kill New Jersey. That's the way we do things here. Just in case you didn't know. The level of corruption. Folks, with this kind of environment, this is in the Democrat Gazette. This is the environment you are sending people into. You are sending people into an environment where there is such an opportunity to get rich. You do things that are illegal to do it, and then when you get caught, we have this guy who tried to have the guy that was going to testify against him murder. It's essentially one lobbyist trying to murder another lobbyist in New Jersey because the lobbyist in New Jersey was going to testify against the lobbyist in Arkansas. This is humongous news, by the way, just because these are the people. I mean, the next time somebody says, well, this is Arkansas, We're not like Washington, D.C. I just want you to throw this little article in their face. The intended victim was Donald Andrew D.A. Jones, 62, of Willingboro, New Jersey. Jones is a Philadelphia-based political consultant who accepted money embezzled from Preferred Family Healthcare of Springfield. Now, remember this case, okay? This is a big deal. There's still a lot more to come from this. The issue here is they're taking Medicaid dollars, turning it around, and getting a lot of Medicaid dollars, turning around and then paying lobbyists to lobby for more of it. That is against federal law. You can't do that. You can't take Medicaid dollars and then use it to pay lobbyists. Well, that's exactly what Preferred Family Healthcare apparently has been engaged in. So Donald Jones, in this New Jersey guy, December the 18th, he pled guilty to one count of conspiring to defraud Preferred Family of $973,807 from early 2011 until January 2017. The motive of the murder-for-hire plan was to prevent Jones from testifying and describing $264,000 in kickbacks received by Rusty Cranford and one of Cranford's employees. Now, that employee, I believe, is now State Representative Eddie Cooper, okay? And he was in the news for – did he plead guilty too? I can't – did Eddie plead guilty? Here, maybe they'll tell us. Or was I can't remember if he was indicted or he pled guilty. I really can't. I'm sorry. It's a tangled web. Cranford should be denied bail because clear and convincing evidence establishes there is a serious risk the defendant will obstruct and attempt to obstruct justice and threaten, injure, and intimidate prospective witnesses in an attempt to do so. Preferred Family is a nonprofit company operating substance abuse and behavioral health treatment centers in 5 states, including Arkansas. Doug Thompson goes on, Preferred Family facilities in Arkansas received $33.4 million in Medicaid reimbursements in 2016, among other state and federal taxpayer funds. Cranford also played a role in the kickback scheme of Arkansas State Senator John Woods. Now, here's where you start connecting the dots here. You got these linchpins who are going to connect, with these other schemes involving John Woods, Mike and Neil, and that had to do with it was Amera Works or something like that, had to do with veterans, or they were trying to, going to help veterans, and then, of course, they gave the money back. Cranford hasn't been charged in the Arkansas cases. However, Monday's motion to detain without bail says that Cranford is likely to face significant additional charges in more than one federal district. Cranford is a longtime lobbyist in Arkansas whose firm specializes in behavioral health issues and youth services. So you have 3 Preferred Family Healthcare executives not named in court documents. But if you go and you look, at previous reporting, there's a lot of people that assume that the 3 Preferred Family executives who are no longer there are, Tom and Bontia Goss and one other person, the heads of it. Their names have been mentioned. We don't know that, but, you can take a pretty good educated guess that that's what's going on here. 3 Preferred Family executives not named in court documents paid Jones $973,000 from early 2011 until January 2017. All taken from the nonprofit group, according to Jones' guilty plea. Now, again, you can't do that because it's Medicaid dollars. You can't give money to lobbyists. Cranford helped arrange the deal between the executives and Jones, according to his indictment. Cranford was the nonprofit group's Arkansas lobbyist and a director of some of its Arkansas operations. Cranford received $219,000 in kickbacks from Jones in returns for assistance in getting the agreement for payment from Preferred Family, according to Cranford's February 20th indictment. So this guy was arrested. Scroll back up. Can we see this guy's photo again? So this is Rusty Cranford. This is him. This is his mugshot. They arrested him one morning. One cold February morning. Here we are almost a month later. Okay. Now, speaking of Eddie Cooper, and mentions him, scrolling back down, another $45,000 went to Cranford's employee and business associate, former state representative Eddie Cooper of Melbourne, for the same purpose. Okay. Cooper did plead guilty, thank you, article, February 12th to one count of conspiracy to embezzle for his role in the scheme. Cooper was a member of Preferred Family's board of directors for several years while the arrangement with Jones was in effect. Okay. So let's get to the murder for hire plot when we come back. You're hearing it. It's the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. Doug Thompson reports this. Rusty Cranford, Arkansas lobbyist, tries to have New Jersey lobbyist killed because he's going to testify against him. It's like an episode of Matlock, ladies and gentlemen, except it's real life, it's embarrassing, and you must realize the level of corruption we have in Arkansas politics. We've got to take a break. Back in just a moment.
This is Mother Government. My people. The promised revenue gathering to fund my motherly goals, such as the Arkansas Works, Obamacare, private option has commenced. I have asked my representatives and senators to execute my will concerning new revenues from the tires you use to drive on my roads, the candy and sodas you consume and purchase in my stores, and the digital products you download on my internet. Your sacrifices and tributes, which are owed, display a measure of obedience, but there are still collectible sacrifices I require from the people to increase the work and size of our great government of Arkansas. There are two matters left unresolved. 1. I require a general tribute for all purchases made on my internet. Not just digital products, but all products. My dear children, there are those who would thwart my motherly goals of progress. If you see them, please combat their misguided notions of freedom by using phrases like mom and pop, and tax cheat. 2. I still require more revenue sacrifices concerning your consumption of my gasoline. I require your undying loyalty on the subject. Subjects, in conclusion. More revenue is good. Static revenue is bad. This message was brought to you by your stewards, aristocrats serving Arkansas. Thank you, my children, in advance for your required and expected obedience that keeps society safe and prosperous. And always remember, from cradle to grave.
PHP Parody. Need your daily news fix? Don't forget to tune in to Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
If you're just joining us, it is a very interesting development in this Rusty Cranford kickback case. Of course, he was arrested back in February, and now the authorities don't want to let him have bail because he tried to have the New Jersey lobbyist that pled guilty back in December murdered. You heard that right, murdered. This is the level of corruption in Arkansas politics. You go down there, you carve out a financial niche for yourself. Eventually, it's illegal, and you're willing to kill somebody to keep from going to jail. Let that be. Seriously, kids out there listening, let that going to school. Let that be a lesson to you. It's a slippery slope. You do one thing wrong, and it leads to another thing, and eventually, you're trying to do everything you can to keep your life together, including taking someone else's life. It is sad. Does not even begin to describe what this is. It's a very evil, depraved existence. And so don't do that. Just don't do the first thing, right? I mean, this is ridiculous. Look at this. This is what, according to the paper here, we have several times between December 18th and January 2nd after Jones pleaded guilty, but before Cranford's arrest, Cranford called a felon he knew. According to the detainment motion, Doug Thompson goes on and reports that Cranford and the felon arranged a meeting, according to the court filing, which says only that the meeting took place January 9th at the felon's house. That felon, identified in Monday's filing as Person A, then contacted federal authorities before the meeting took place. Cranford has known Person A, the felon, for many years and knows that Person A has a criminal history, which includes acts of violence such as robberies and shootings, and has served time in prison for said acts. The meeting was secretly monitored and recorded by the FBI. Quote, "He's in Philadelphia. He's in South Jersey. He needs to go away. He needs to be gone," Cranford said of Jones, according to the FBI transcript of the January 9th meeting. While making this statement to Person A told agents that Cranford used his hand to make a gun-shooting gesture. So, he needs to go away. He's in Philadelphia. He's in South Jersey. Right. All right, so that's what happened. And, of course, the FBI was monitoring the whole thing. And now the murder-for-hire scheme is under investigation further by the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Western District of Arkansas. No charges have been filed yet, though. At the end of the January 9th, 2018 meeting, Cranford handed Person A 5 $100 bills. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm no murderer, but if I was, it would take more than $500 to get me to murder someone. Back in a minute. So Obamacare, when in reality those candidates had supported it many times.
Right, but I'm going to say something that saddens my heart as a woman and as a mother. Those opponents were seasoned politicians: John Burris, Eddie Joe Williams, Jane English. But Breanne Davis is a young woman, fresh, 3 young children. She's starting her political career. So Friday, when I saw that letter from her that started out, just a classic strategy, started out saying, my opponent's lies and distortions of my beliefs, positions, and my character, he's decided to run a campaign based on dishonesty. My heart was broken for her as a woman who understands how hard it is to balance family and a career, and to see her start her political career on such a statement. It may be consistent with what the political industry does in Arkansas, but it just saddened me to see this.
Yeah, so it's like the dishonesty. I mean, are we just now in a world where we're going to equate facts we don't like, the people knowing that that's somehow dishonest? And that's kind of what it seems like.
Well, apparently, I think what it does is a counterfeit, and this has been a strategy, I think, since the beginning of time, to counterfeit the truth. There's truth, and then there is a lie, and you counterfeit something to look similar to the truth, but a little bit different. Then one does not believe the truth either. And of course, you hear people every day say, "Oh, they all lie. They're politicians." So what would come out of Bob's mouth is, if it is weakened to believe it is not truth either, no one is speaking the truth, then the voter becomes, disinterested.
Yeah.
Oh, give up. There's no use. And, that's when we all lose our freedom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, if people just kind of throw their hands up and say, all right, there's no one righteous here. There's no one I can agree with on the issues and that sort of thing. I did notice there's a Michael Wickline article we were going over that actually did kind of reiterate that there are clear differences between the two candidates, though. And so I kind of felt like that was validating some of this other ad that went out, when we talk about the Second Amendment, or we talk about tort reform, or we talk about Arkansas Works.
Well, I mean, who knows? Maybe Mike looked at the sources. I mean, he can read.
Mm-hmm.
I would assume.
Yeah, and these there are a lot of sources on here. I mean, specifically, let's go with term limits for a second. I mean, when you look at what Breanne Davis said versus what Bob Bailey said at the Pope County Republican meeting, that is on video, where she said that, hey, she thinks that term limits are not a good thing, that people need to be down there longer. Bob Bailey saying no, term limits are a good thing because, you know, the power of incumbency is really, really, difficult. I mean, so that's a clear issue, and the people of Senate District 16 can make up their minds. This whole thing.
The intersection of conservative ideas and reality. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
So what does Arkansas say to New Jersey? I mean, you know, when we have Arkansas lobbyists trying to kill New Jersey lobbyists, again, you would think the reverse of that would be true. You think it would be New Jersey lobbyists trying to kill Arkansas lobbyists. So what do we say? I mean, Chris Christie ain't got nothing on us. You know, because of the King Kong thing. The telephone number, 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799. For those of you that are just joining us, I cannot believe this. I mean, this is if anyone's guilty of assuming worse motives, it's me. Right? And I'm sorry. I apologize if I do that many times. I know I do it a lot. I think sometimes it's warranted. I mean, I think sometimes to me it's there. I'm very convinced with the data and the facts that I have that for example, I think Republican establishment politicians are intentionally misleading a conservative base. They're intentionally misleading to preserve their power and to make their donors and the lobbyists happy. That's what I think. Some people say, you know, and that would be an example of me putting the worst motives on the political opposition, what I see to be the political opposition. But here, I mean, we have a filing accusing a lobbyist of a murder for hire plot. This is the same lobbyist who is involved in the Senator John Woods public corruption trial that's going to go on in April. He's now involved in the preferred family health care, which this is the confirmation of what sources told us late last year, maybe in the fall last year. We had rumors and whispers of FBI meetings and FBI talking to some people in the Senate chamber, telling everybody how bad it was going to be, how there's going to be politicians and lobbyists that are going to be indicted. They're going to be politicians that are going to have to resign, and a lot of this stuff. And I still don't think we've seen the end of it, but I think the main point that was communicated to me last October was that the John Woods, Micah Neal, and even Jake Files general improvement funds, where they stole money, okay? They're stealing money from the taxpayers to enrich themselves. The FBI had figured out that it wasn't just the general improvement funds. It wasn't just that particular fund of money that was being ripped off. That this was also about Medicaid. That this was also about Medicaid fraud. And now we have that is now true with the whole preferred family health care, Eddie Cooper, Rusty Cranford. But isn't it funny? I guess what I was talking about earlier was speaking to the young people in our audience. It starts out where you're just lying, and then you're stealing, and then you try to murder someone. I think that's a natural progression. Yeah. Thank you, Joe. Joe says it's a gateway crime. I mean, let that be a lesson to all you politicians out there. I mean, none of you get in. I very few. Now, some of you do, but not all of you. Let me say that. Not all of you get into politics because you want to steal from the taxpayers. but you're shown how the world works. This is how things are done. You know what I mean? I mean, you go back and look at Micah Neal. Now, Micah Neal pled guilty to taking $38,000 in kickbacks. But if you actually go back and look at when the scheme began, it began immediately. I mean, he got elected, and it immediately was going on. Him and John Woods. John Woods basically took him under his wing and aided in his corruption. But it certainly is a gateway crime. Let's get down there, or you can even say that the ethics are the gateway. Let's just do something unethical. Let's just carve out a financial niche. Let me just use my position to. It could just be something as simple as having knowledge that no one else has. We saw that at the federal level all the time. You hear about stocks or companies are going to do this or that, and then you're going to move or buy and invest or divest or whatever. But this is. You can have a clear progression here. Here's my question: has Rusty Cranford had anyone else murdered? Has he actually murdered anyone that we don't know about? It's an honest question. If this court document is true and the FBI has recordings of this guy trying to, hire his old buddy for $500, I gotta think that's a one-time payment. By the way, a first installment of a payment, right, Joe? Come on. Hey, here's $500. Have another meeting with me. Let's talk about murdering this guy.
Half on the front end, half on the back end.
Yeah. It better not even be half. I mean, we're talking about Rusty Cranford here. I mean, you've made, what, $219,000 in kickbacks, and you can only afford $500 to have the New Jersey lobbyist murdered?
Here's the thing. All the money that he's getting is hush-hush money. Like, no one knows about it. So why would anyone go like, dude, I just made $200,000, or I just made $200,000.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
It's like,
but if you're,
because if you told someone that you want, say you go into a meeting as Rusty Cranford, and the guy that you're going across the table from knows you've made $200,000 from this, and you go, hey, I'll pay you $500
to murder someone. Let's be clear. We have to put that in there. I'll pay you $500 to murder this guy.
Well, the first response of the person across the table is,
wait a second.
Dude, you just paid $200,000. Why are you paying me just $500? That's chump change for you right now.
Yeah, not to mention, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what it costs. I don't know. I have no idea. But I got to feel like it's more than $500.
I don't know. You must have found someone cheap on the dark web.
I guess. But, man, $500 is, I mean, come on. Right?
He has a 5-star rating on the dark web.
I was
cheap and successful.
Maybe that's maybe you know how people say the cost of living in Arkansas is cheap compared to other places? Well, maybe it's also cheaper to murder people. I don't know. I'm serious. All right, so I was at a wedding. I told this a couple weeks ago, but I was at a wedding like 2-3 weeks ago. I can't remember. And there was a couple who was in from Chicago, and they were asking me what I did, and I told them. By the way, that's always you never know how people are going to react when you tell them you're a conservative talk radio host. The reaction was good. We had a good conversation. I was telling them we talked about tort reform. They were both attorneys. And then eventually I told them about, Mike Maggio, this judge that pled guilty to taking a bribe for $10,000. And the looks on their faces where they were just like, only $10,000? Like, really? He lowered a judgment for a nursing home owner from like $5 million, knocked a couple million, and he only got $10,000 from it. And so it was funny to me, they're from Cook County, Illinois, and it's like, if corruption's a thing up there, it's a lot more expensive than it is down here.
Standard of living is lower in Arkansas. The standard of corruption payments are lower in Arkansas.
I guess so.
The standard of everything.
Yeah. So if you're, I'd
say also,
if you're a corrupt lobbyist, your money goes a lot further down here in Arkansas than it does in other places.
For those of you who don't travel too much out of state, I go to Chicago once a year for a week for Thanksgiving.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you do.
Gas prices are ridiculously different.
Mm-hmm.
Like right now, it's probably $2.15 here in Jonesboro. I think the average gas price is $2.15. I bet you right now in Chicago it's $3.50 plus.
Yeah, it's you get different standard of livings, different basically economies in a way.
Yeah, my cousin, her and her husband, they sold their house because it was too expensive, and they lived with her parents for just a little while. They came down to visit a couple months ago, but this story actually happens in Mississippi, not in Arkansas. Talks to my cousin, and apparently the money that they were spending on property tax alone for their house, they could have bought a 3-acre piece of land, built a house, and lived on it for a few years before matching that number.
Yeah, property tax is another, especially New Jersey. Speaking of New Jersey, it's rough. Hey, speaking of New Jersey, there was somebody that was on Medicaid expansion for, and they had a house in New Jersey worth $750,000. How'd that happen? Let me read this for you again one more time, and then I've got another question to ask, okay? So we're talking about Rusty Cranford, who's implicated in the John Woods scandal. And we're talking about Rusty Cranfield, who's now implicated in this Medicaid fraud at a Preferred Family Healthcare, and Eddie Cooper and the Goss family and everything else. Oh, and by the way, same law firm is working with the Bureau of Legislative Research that's working with Preferred Family Healthcare, which is a huge conflict of interest. Nobody wants to point that out but me. Several times between December 18th, this is Doug Thompson, and January 2nd, after Jones pleaded guilty, this Jones is the New Jersey lobbyist that pled guilty. But before Cranford's arrest, Cranford called a felon he knew, according to the detainment motion. Cranford and the felon arranged a meeting, according to the court filing, which says only that the meeting took place January 9th at the felon's house. That felon, identified in Monday's filing as Person A, contacted federal authorities before the meeting took place. Cranford has known Person A for many years and knows that Person A, again the felon, has a criminal history which includes acts of violence such as robberies and shootings, and has served time in prison for said acts. All right. He's in Philadelphia. He's in South Jersey, whispered. He needs to go away. He needs to be gone, Cranford said of Jones, according to the FBI transcript. While making this statement to Person A told agents that Cranford used his hand to make a gun shooting gesture. By the way, FBI, look, I think it's past time. You guys need to be using cameras more often, not just recording things. Oh, right. I'm just saying you need to, come on, let's get extra. Can we not see the gun motion? I mean, they're hidden. They're small. Cameras are small now. So while making this statement to Person A told agents that Cranford used his hand to make a gun shooting gesture. At the end of the January 9th, 2018 meeting, Cranford handed Person A 5 $100 bills while stating he would return to Person A's residence on January 12th to further discuss the details of the murder. That meeting did not take place. The murder for hire scheme is under further investigation. So that's what happened. I just can't believe this. You have the New Jersey lobbyist who pleads guilty, and then you have the Arkansas lobbyist, Rusty Cranford, who tries to have the New Jersey lobbyist killed before he can testify against him. Perry Mason, Matlock, Murder, She Wrote, all of the best shows I grew up watching. This is a plot of one of those shows. Now, this is what I have to say next. Here's my question. This is for all the Little Rock elites. This is for all the Republican establishment politicians who constantly defend the status quo. This is for Asa Hutchinson. Matter of fact, this is for Asa Hutchinson. So tell me now, Asa, about how crazy Brian King is when he tries to bring up Medicaid disclosure and the corruption that we have in our Medicaid system. I want all of you guys. I want Asa and the boys and everybody else. Tell me again how crazy Senator Brian King is. Because right now, he looks like he's very sane. And you guys look like you're comfortable with the status quo. Brian King has tried 4 times to pass a Medicaid disclosure bill that would bring Medicaid entities in line with every other entity. If you're a public official and you own a lawn care business and you're a state representative and you get a contract with a college, a state-funded college, you just have to disclose that you've got that contract. There's no there. You just have to disclose. But we don't have to disclose if you're a Medicaid entity and you're giving money to a state politician. If you're a consultant or you're getting money on the side, you don't have to disclose that at all. And I think we know why. Honestly, I have seen lobbyists and I have seen politicians roll their eyes when Senator Brian King takes to the floor or goes and speaks in a committee, and they think that he is just fear-mongering, or they think that he is just grandstanding, but he's actually trying to pin these weasels down, and he's trying to expose the truth that there is a ton of corruption in Arkansas politics, and a lot of it has to do with Medicaid. But you guys just roll your eyes, and you guys, you treat him like, oh, we've got to let Brian King talk now. But what he is saying is truth, and you guys are ignoring it. So tell me again, Governor, how irrelevant Brian King is. It's what you said the other day in the paper. You said that his irrelevancy just keeps increasing or something like that. I'm paraphrasing. How irrelevant is he, Governor? We've got lobbyists trying to murder other lobbyists in other states. We have massive healthcare conglomerates, Medicaid conglomerates who have locations in other states, including Arkansas, and they're bribing and giving kickbacks to former state representatives. So tell me again how irrelevant Brian King is, or how crazy he is. Because right now, he's batting 1,000 in terms of him being able to call out what is really going on here. Again, you start to just carve out a financial niche. Maybe it's technically legal, then it goes to illegal. Now you're just straight out stealing. And in order to keep the stealing going or to cover up the stealing, you contemplate murder. The phone number is 870-275-9799. Again, Doug Thompson reporting that the filing accuses the lobbyist of a murder-for-hire plot. Rusty Cranford is accused of trying to have murdered Don Jones of New Jersey, who pled guilty in December to this kickback scheme. We've got to take a break. You're listening to Conduit News Radio. I'm Paul Harrell. Back in just a moment.
If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
In a world full of constituents with social media accounts, bloggers just looking to increase their page views, and a talk radio host who generally is just the worst, how are Little Rock's elite supposed to conduct business with such a lack of privacy? Introducing the 1835 Club, older and more refined than other clubs that claim discretion. The 1835 Club is for seasoned political veterans that want to conduct the highest form of aristocratic business with the public's money. Are you a schemer? Do you someday want a guaranteed flow of taxpayer money to support your business? Is it your dream to see the .gov domain at the end of your business website? Don't listen to the imitators. The 1835 Club is the place where corrupt politicians and businessmen hatch their next crony schemes. At the 1835 Club, we make lobbying safe and legal. Ethics. Why, of course. All business is done in an ethical manner. Just look for the sign above the door that reads, loophole. Are you tired of the Capitol Police restricting your access to the roof after a perfectly good night of drinking? The 1835 Club has libations and a perfectly good roof. Other crony clubs that promise discretion try to lure you in by advertising bars made out of aeroplanes. Well, at the 1835 Club, instead of an airplane fuselage, we've got a space shuttle. No, not a bar. We've got an actual space shuttle that makes a daily run to the moon so members of the 1835 Club can have some real privacy away from the bloggers and taxpayers. Are you an Arkansas aristocrat? Do you want to be? It's the 1835 Club, and we work tirelessly to make sure the good old boy system remains alive and well. Join today.
Disclaimer. The 1835 Club reserves the right to deny membership to anyone who has principles. Any talk of the Declaration of Independence or the Constitution must be done in jest or, at the very least, with a condescending tone. And finally, the 1835 Club will be given a 25% commission of any agreements made between politicians and the business community.
PHP Parody. Exposing the truth and everything the Marble Palace establishment keep trying to cover up. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Yes, it is also the morning of the special election in District 16. It's a huge, huge election, election day today. You know what I'll say? The bottom line is this. I was talking to a local last week in District 16, and they were asking me about the different candidates. And, of course, you know, I believe that I believe in anti-establishment. I believe in Bob Bailey. And I told this individual, I said, you know, it really just about what kind of environment do you think Little Rock is? And as a voter, I would just encourage all voters to understand what kind of environment Little Rock actually is. What kind of environment are you voting to send this legislator into? And you need to know. And we've done a good job on Conduit News Radio detailing how corrupt Arkansas politics is, how they're going down there and doing illegal things and doing some legal things, but that are just unethical. And I think really it's like a cherry on top with this article today that just broke, that not only is it corrupt down there, but we have people who are contemplating murder. You know what I mean? That's just amazing to me that this happens, you know, on this day. So, anyway, you have to get out there and vote. I'll say this: either side. If you don't go vote, I mean, you know, how can you go complain, right? If you don't vote, how can you complain? So you got to get out there and vote. Polls are going to be open today in District 16 until 7:30, and get out there and go vote, folks. I know a lot of you love to vote on actual election day. You don't buy this early voting stuff. If you see something, let me say something to the poll workers. or the poll workers or the poll watchers, feel free. If there's something that's going on that's irregular, let me know. 870-275-9799. If you see something, you can text that number or you can call that number, 870-275-9799. You can leave us a voicemail if nobody answers. We will get back to you. But we will definitely be, everybody, the whole state. Asa Hutchinson, he's watching this election. He's put a lot of money into this. He's put a lot of his own reputation on the line here. And I don't know what's going to happen. My gut feeling says it's going to be close. And that's just because the governor has the media, the governor has the chambers, the governor has all of this money that's been going to Breann Davis versus the very limited amount of funds that Bob Bailey has, and yet you have the Democrats. I mean, that's the big thing here, the Democrats. I mean, the Democrats are coming out and voting for Breann Davis, and so we got to have all conservatives on deck here to make the difference. I will tell you this. Win or lose, I think it's time to look at Representative Jim Dotson's bill from 2017, House Bill 1977. It didn't go anywhere, but it was an act to require a voter to declare his or her political party affiliation before the voter may cast a vote in a preferential primary election or a general primary election. That would be a closed primary. I think it's time to revisit that, win or lose, however this race comes out. Because I think Democrats and Republicans alike would like to be able to decide who's going to represent their party. We've got one more hour coming your way next.
The news and talk of Northeast Arkansas. This is News Talk 101.3 FM and 12:30 AM KBTM, Jonesboro, an EAB radio station.
Anytime you approach an election, you want a clear choice. You want to know the differences. And I think there are differences. I think shouting liar, liar is a way to distract from the clear differences between the two candidates that represent two distinct directions for the people of District 16.
I noticed that in her letter she said she would not vote for a tax increase. And, of course, that's really a big issue right now. Mm-hmm. The Internet sales tax is a tax increase. There are those who want to say this is a tax already owed. It's a use tax. It's just not being collected. So someone who voted for that passage of that legislation may want to embrace the argument that this is not raising taxes. To bring in $150 million more annually to Arkansas would not be a tax increase. People can say that, but it doesn't make it true. Mm-hmm. Anytime you're collecting money that you weren't previously collecting, you have to pass a law to do it. We like to argue with Charlie Collins. He'll go down forever saying it's not a tax increase. But to me, that's just like saying the private option, Arkansas Works, is not Medicaid expansion, is not Obamacare. I mean, really, our voters now have to be committed to finding the truth, and the truth is there, and it's not hard. It is just looking at things from the perspective of what are these people trying to sell me, and what are they getting out of it? And I think that might lead a lot to understanding the truth in all the noise.
Yeah, and I'm really glad you brought that up about the tax increase, because we have seen time and time again they will raise taxes, and they will come back to us and say, no, we didn't raise taxes. They'll grow government, and then they'll claim it's conservative, and that is really, really hard to parse that. So when you have a letter that goes that says I'm not for tax increases, but Asa claims he's not for tax increases either. Right? I mean, he calls the tire tax increase, oh, that's just a fee. We had to take care of some environmental stuff. I mean, he dismisses what is clearly a tax increase. And so that's what's so frustrating with these campaigns is, and, when you're so affiliated with Asa Hutchinson and you're getting all your money from the Marble Palace, you're getting all your money from lobbyists in Little Rock, and you say you're not for any tax increases, well, the Republicans down there claim that they are not for tax increases when they have raised our taxes. And so we have to have, Thomas Jefferson said that an educated citizenry is indispensable to the proper functioning of a republic. And so I really hope that the people of District 16 are aware of the carefully crafted language. And, I mean, it really is an establishment versus anti-establishment race, very much like you see on the national level sometimes.
In January, last month, our governor came to our Washington County Republican Committee, and Joe Maynard asked him, Governor, I see that you've raised spending, or you've increased spending about $200 million a year since you've been in office. Can we expect that to continue? And Governor Hutchinson said, yes, you can, and the reason is because of the prisons, the highways, and Medicaid expansion, or Medicaid. Those costs will cause us to continue to need to continue to increase spending. And so Joe also asked Ms. Davis that last month at the Pope County Republican Committee, not her committee, she's not a member of that committee, but she was there, asked her that question, and her response was she would continue the spending because of the cost of prisons. And so looking at the budget, and you see that it's 7.8% of all state spending, I mean, and that's the reason we're going to continue our spending at $200 million
a year.
When the voter understands, a year. When the voter understands that, they can understand, what's going on. Why don't we just put all our Medicaid spending in a block grant, and then give all the increased $200 million to our Department of Corrections? Maybe we can do that. You know, if we're determined to improve corrections.
Yeah, that's another consistency between Asa and Breanne. They are now blaming their spending increases year after year after year, now $600 million on prisons, when that's not the driver of our spending at all. It's very minuscule, and in fact, the prison system's underfunded. I mean, if you look at what's going on, we can't keep the criminals behind bars to serve their sentences. And just last week we had that.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
Sorry, I saw the Reform Alliance. This is funny to me. Popping up in the Arkansas legislature feed, hashtag ARLeg. They just tweeted that they are encouraged that Governor Asa Hutchinson has committed to supporting their EAS bill in our next general session. I guess that'd be Education Savings Accounts bill, and that they're saying that they're encouraged that Asa is now supporting that for the next session. And I'm retweeting that, but I am putting a comment that primaries will do that because that's why he's supporting it. 870-275-9799 is the telephone number. That's 870-275-9799 if you want to contribute to the program. It's the intersection of conservative ideas and reality, where we're building a liberty machine. We want you to be a part of that liberty machine. You can also sound off Facebook.com/Conduit News. That's Facebook.com/Conduit News. If you are just joining us this morning, the news out of the state of Arkansas is that Rusty Cranford, who was arrested in February in connection with the Preferred Family Health Care kickback scheme involving Preferred Family Health Care, a Missouri outfit, and former state representative Eddie Cooper, along with a New Jersey lobbyist who pled guilty in December, we now have a public document that says that Rusty Cranford tried to have the New Jersey lobbyist murdered in a murder-for-hire case. The FBI claims they've got audio of Rusty Cranford going to a friend of his who's a felon known for robbing and shootings, and the friend tipped the FBI off and was monitoring the meeting. And so we have an Arkansas lobbyist that tried to have a New Jersey lobbyist murdered because the New Jersey lobbyist was going to testify, and the contents of that testimony were going to incriminate the Arkansas lobbyist, Rusty Cranford. So when I tell you that corruption in Arkansas is a serious thing, this is what I'm talking about. When we talk about how Medicaid funding in this state is leading to corruption, this is the worst. I mean, maybe it gets worse than this. I don't know, but this is certainly the height. It's getting this is crazy. I mean, this is nuts. You realize that, right? This is absolutely nuts. When you go vote today in Senate District 16, I want you to understand, and the ones of you who've been listening to this program in Senate District 16 on KARV for 3 years. Before in the River Valley, it was on KCAB, then it was on KARV. But you guys know the level of corruption we're talking about here. You guys have been listening. You guys know that this fight is not about one candidate, not about one race. It's just about stopping the corruption in Arkansas politics. In order to do that, when you go vote, the people that are listening to this program, I know that you know the kind of environment. When you vote for whoever it is, I know that you know the kind of environment you're sending your politician down to. And it's brutal. It's brutal, and it requires strength. I mean, it requires just courage and determination. Folks, an Arkansas lobbyist just tried to have a New Jersey lobbyist murdered. And this was back in January that this meeting took place, that the FBI recorded, according to reports. This is not just some, yeah, sure, I'll run for office. This is a lot worse than that. This is not, we're not Washington, D.C. and Little Rock. We're Little Rock and Arkansas, we're not like the D.C. And the people of Arkansas really appreciate that we get things done and we don't squabble. And we're not like Washington, D.C. This is not Washington. No, we pretty much are. Pretty much are. We're a little lazier, though. I feel like Washington people, they'll take a few more steps to launder that money and make it a little bit more complicated. We just run it through one or two sources and we're good. Like Jake Files, when he laundered his money, he didn't even try to launder the money, really. He was very lazy. He just sent his employee down to open a bank account in her own name, and then had her withdraw the money that was sent to her from the government and just give it to him in cash money. I feel like at least the whole ecclesia thing is a little bit more complicated with the consultant and selling access and that sort of thing. Arkansas. That's great. We have a text message. Does Medicaid expansion cover Arkansas? Oh, that's good. You know, Arkansas is what they call, that's a national word. And they use the word Arkansas when they tie it to the Clintons, and they tie it to the string of unfortunate circumstances surrounding a lot of people who knew or worked with the Clintons and might have known some things. That's the conspiracy. I'll tell you, some of these deaths on the list, though, it's a long string of I don't think they're maybe all legitimate, but it's interesting, and that's what I'm just saying. On the internet, the conspiracy theory, it's now been termed Arkansas, and it's specifically When you just he just couldn't go on. He shot himself. He shot himself, and he committed suicide. That's what Arkansas is. If you just didn't know that, that's why Arkansas, by the way, has so much catching up to do with the rest. Like, we have an accountability problem. We almost put 2 Clintons in the White House. Can we talk about that for a second? The state of Arkansas almost put 2 Clintons in the White House. The second one would have devastated this country for generations. There would have been no more religious freedom. If you don't, maybe you think that's a loaded statement. It's really not. It's really not. There would have been no more religious freedom with Hillary Clinton in the White House. They were coming for folks who are people of conscience, for sure. But anyway, I say all that to say I don't know if Arkansas is covered under Medicaid expansion. I'm not sure. I'm not sure at all. But this is a level of corruption most people do not want to acknowledge exists. There are very few politicians that want to acknowledge it exists. And again, my question for Asa Hutchinson last hour, is Brian King really that irrelevant now? And to all of the establishment, Brian King has been trying to expose this with transparency in government for a couple of years now, and you guys pretty much laugh at him. Well, look at the headlines. I think it's clear who's serious about corruption. I think it's clear who's right about corruption. And the rest of you who just put your head in the sand and you ignore it, I'm beginning to wonder why when it's this blatant. The telephone number, 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799. Okay, what else happened? All right, so they picked the leadership a couple weeks ago. We know that the governor's nephew, Jim Hendren, was selected to be the president pro temp of the Senate, effectively meaning that the Arkansas Senate is now a state agency of the governor because of family ties. There is now very little, if any, separation of powers between the executive branch and the legislative branch. That's a huge problem for me. Constitutionally, I believe in 3 separate and equal branches of government. And now we have, with the governor's nephew as the head, we have the Arkansas Senate becoming a state agency, pretty much. That's what happened there. It's a shame. It's an absolute shame. But I will say this: we also have a Speaker of the House election, and that actually took place yesterday. So after the fiscal session ended, they elect a new speaker for the next year. So coming up in January for the 2019 session. And El Dorado's Matthew Shepard, State Representative Shepard, was elected speaker. He's 42 years old, and the vote was 57-41. Now, keep in mind, there are 75 Republicans in the House of Representatives. And so 57 wanted Matt Shepard, and 41 did not. I don't know what that means. See, Andy Davis, a Little Rock engineer, State Representative Andy Davis, he was also running for the speaker's position, and he did not get it. And I saw one report saying, well, he didn't get it because he's from Little Rock, which is strange. They were saying that you come to find out that all the speakers are not from Little Rock. I mean, it's like a tradition now to not let the speaker be from Little Rock, and I don't know. The leadership, you got to look at the leadership problems that we've been having. Okay, let's take the Senate. All right, Michael Lamoureux, 2013. Michael Lamoureux becomes the president pro temp. Right, we know how he does things. We know how he loves to carve out a financial niche for himself. We know how he was the governor, went from president pro temp to the governor, to the chief of staff of the governor. Then he had to resign because he had to move on because everybody found out that he took $120,000. Then Asa hired a Democrat as his chief of staff. A lot of people don't know that. Asa's chief of staff now is a Democrat from Washington. But Michael Lamoureux, then Michael Lamoureux passes the torch on to Jonathan Dismang, also a big government Republican. Makes excuses as to why conservatism can't work in state government. Now, of course, Jonathan Dismang passing the torch on to the governor's nephew, Senator Jim Hendren, which is just going to essentially be more of the same. Although it'll be, again, official. It's official that the Arkansas Senate is now a state agency under the executive branch. And then you go look at the House. You got to go all the way back to Davy Carter. He was elected with the support of the Democrats. He was a big government Republican. Now I believe he's not even a registered Republican. I think he may be a registered Democrat, or I can't remember. Of course, Davy Carter passes the torch on to Jeremy Gillum, who, by all accounts, Speaker Gillum is a really, really nice guy, and his demeanor actually garners him a lot of respect. But he's not a conservative by any stretch of the imagination. And he came up with this rule change that actually took power away from the legislature and gave more of it to the speaker. And so now we have Matthew Shepard. He is now the next Speaker of the House. Now the question on a lot of people's minds is there going to be any change here? Is there going to be anything different? I don't really believe so. And the only reason I don't believe that there's going to be anything different, meaning a measurable change in shift in how the House of Representatives works, meaning are we going to let legislators legislate, or are we going to have all these predetermined outcomes? Are we going, like, for example, is Matthew Shepard going to write Governor Asa Hutchinson a letter when he's asked to? For example, when Asa Hutchinson asked Jeremy Gillum and Jonathan Dismang to write him a letter with ideas that Asa already conveyed to them, saying we won't go into a special session until we have a bill that already has 2/3 support, adding an extra constitutional requirement. Is Matthew Shepard going to say, no, Governor, I'm not going to write a letter that's your idea and pretend it's my idea. I think we're just going to allow the body to do what it wants to do. If there's a will to pass something, we'll pass it. If there's not, we won't. You think Matthew Shepard's going to do that? I hope that he would. I hope that he would just allow the House of Representatives to be autonomous. The Arkansas Senate's now state agency. So, I mean, I hope it happens, but I don't have my hopes up, is what I'm saying. I hope I'm wrong. I hope we do have, like, what I would consider regular order, not these backroom deals with predetermined results. You know, we look at the state House of Representatives as just a bunch of people to manipulate. You got the in crowd, and then you got the conservatives you got to worry about. But as long as we can keep them corralled, we'll be fine. I don't think necessarily Matthew Shepard would say, no, Governor, I'm not going to send you a letter with your own ideas and try to pass them off as mine. That's exactly what happened with Dismang and Gillum, by the way. You talk about collusion. Everyone talks about collusion. Yeah. We have no separation of powers right now between the executive and legislative branch. I hope that changes, but it won't change anytime soon in the Arkansas Senate. Again, Arkansas Senate now a state agency because we have uncle and nephew at the helm. We have to go to break. You're listening to Conduit News Radio. Back in just a moment.
Good morning. Good morning. Congratulations, you have made it to the Bureau of Carefully Crafted Language, where we strive to offer politicians the very best in ambiguously specific language, the purpose of which is to allow our politician bosses to grow government and keep their constituents in the dark. This yields two beneficial outcomes. First, the government-growing politicians stay in office, and second, we at the Bureau of Carefully Crafted Language get to remain in the shadows and get to keep our jobs. Now, it's time for technocrat training drills. Johnny?
Yes?
A politician wants to use the healthcare system to punish those who have and redistribute their wealth. What is the appropriate language to use in a situation to make an unpopular idea acceptable to the public?
I would emphasize that these ideas would make their healthcare more affordable and make sure the public understands if they already have adequate healthcare, nothing will change for them.
Very good, Johnny. Much progress since last time. Next up, let's have Susie. Susie, your politician has been caught in, dare I say it, a lie.
What kind of a lie?
It doesn't really matter, but in the spirit of the Bureau of Carefully Crafted Language, I will give you a good hypothetical scenario. Dozens of politicians have been thrown out of office for supporting a socialist health care program. So the remaining politicians get together and they pass a bill to, quote, end the program, end quote. But they really want to keep it. What should they do, Susie?
May I ask a question for more information?
Certainly.
Has the word lie been used by the political opposition?
Yes.
I know. They should change the name of the program. Maybe use the word works to make the sheeple think it's for working folk. Then they should go on the attack and get the public distracted. I would advise the politician to publicly question why our political dialogue has become so uncivilized and tell them to claim using the word lie, no matter how accurate, is a personal attack on his or her character. And if they admit to any wrongdoing at all, they must replace the word lie with words like misspoke, misstatement, misrepresent, or mislead.
Amazing! Excellent work, Susie. I feel like the student has really become the teacher. You will make a terrific addition to the Bureau of Carefully Crafted Language.
All hands on deck. This is a Bureau of Carefully Crafted Language emergency. Several politicians are scrambling after being exposed by some talk radio host. Let's move it, people. They need our help.
The Bureau of Carefully Crafted Language. You vote 'em in, and we keep 'em in. PHP Parody. Determined to drain the swamp in Little Rock, it's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
The Bureau of Carefully Crafted Languages. The Bureau is an amazing state agency. They work tirelessly to around the clock sometimes to get the talking points, to craft the language in such a way where you feel good about what the politician is saying, but you actually don't know specifically. You don't have a clue what he actually said. You don't have a clue like what the actual point is. And they work, the Bureau of Carefully Crafted Language, they work very, very well, very closely with Governor Asa Hutchinson. And they, well, I mean, you know, what a lot of people don't realize is, you know, Asa writes the draft of a lot of his own stuff and then sends it over to the Bureau to be critiqued. I mean, Asa is really more of a natural. In some cases, he outshines longtime members of the Bureau of Carefully Crafted Language. So it's a very, very good team. And you really can't, at the end of a Carefully Crafted Language speech, you really don't know anything specific. You don't really. You may hear. You know, you would have heard some words that sound good to you. So I think the average person is like, oh, okay, everything is fine. I mean, it's not great. It's not great, but everything's fine, and that's the purpose of Carefully Crafted Language, to make you think that everything is fine without you specifically knowing really anything or any direction. You certainly aren't going to leave with any specific criticisms unless you know how to decode the carefully crafted language. Now, if you know how to decode the carefully crafted language, then it becomes like nails on a chalkboard when you listen to it. I mean, it becomes something that just kind of wells up in your inner being when you hear carefully crafted language, because you fundamentally recognize it for what it is when you hear it, if you know how to decode it, and that is a deception. It's an attempted deception. That's what makes people who know how to decode it, they get kind of offended, because they think to themselves, "Wow, you are attempting to deceive me. It's not working because I know how to decode it." Now, one of the best ways to decode carefully crafted language is to listen to this program, Conduit News Radio. That is one of the best ways to decode carefully crafted language of Asa Hutchinson, or the Bureau of Carefully Crafted Language that actually works for a lot of in-the-know establishment politicians at the Marble Palace. But the reason it makes us kind of angry is because no one likes to be lied to. They especially don't like. And can you imagine? When you know that someone is lying to you, when you know that they're lying to you, it's very frustrating. You ever catch a little kid in a lie and you know what they're saying is not the truth? And it's like, it's even more insulting when you know that they're lying to you. And that's when you can decode the carefully crafted language. That's what you know. Now, if you can't decode it, again, you think everything's fine and benign, but you're not really, you don't really have any specifics. We got to take a break. Back in a moment. Another consistency between Asa and Breanne, they are now blaming their spending increases year after year after year, now $600 million on prisons, when that's not the driver of our spending at all. It's very minuscule, and in fact, the prison system's underfunded. I mean, if you look at what's going on, we can't keep the criminals behind bars to serve their sentences. And just last week we had that story where they were transferring a bunch of guards to another facility. They were temporarily shutting down a facility because it's just they can't continue to pay the workers the wage with the overtimes that they're working. They're going to have more money. So, I mean, we know that we now have, let's just talk about Arkansas Works, because of this program that's sucking money up from all these other places. I mean, we are abdicating our responsibility as a government towards the things that we all agree on, verily. Like, so the majority really agrees that we got to have a prison system. We got to have a place to keep criminals. We have way more people that agree with that, or paying for good roads, than we do with continuing to pay for able-to-work adults who are not working to get free health insurance while we all go to work and can't afford our own health insurance.
Well, think about the increase in our spending. It's $200 million per year, and the entire budget for the Department of Corrections is it's in the $400 million per year. I mean, the increase is half of our Department of Corrections budget. Sort of phenomenal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really is. Well, Brenda, I really appreciate you coming on. Brenda Vassar-Taylor with Commerce in Action, and I'll give you the last word on this because, like I said, I know you've been watching, and I know it was really when we start having candidates, or when Breanne starts saying that it's dishonest or people are lying about others' positions, and yet you have the sources. We even have now Michael Wickline, who, like you said, apparently has read those sources, and he's reporting on several of the issues that were in the initial ad. I just wanted to have you on and set the record straight.
I appreciate that. I always appreciate being on, and I would just encourage Senate District 16 and all of Arkansas as they gear up for these primaries that don't give up, win or lose. Being willing to engage in the battle or in the war is a win for our state, because truth is worth fighting for. And like you mentioned about the communist Chinese, we don't believe what they believe. We believe freedom is important, and freedom starts with speaking the truth and embracing it and acting accordingly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that we can, stand before future generations and say, we at least tried to do something. I agree with that. Brenda Vassar-Taylor with Commerce in Action, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
All righty, folks, we're going to take a break. Don't go anywhere. Back in a moment.
Bringing you your daily dose of truth. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
It is Election Day for the people of Senate District 16. Again, go vote. I said earlier that you really don't have a right to complain if you don't go vote. That is not true. That is technically not true. But it is, you do have a right to complain if you don't go vote. That's true. But you don't, I mean, you know, your complaints are a little bit more legitimate if you participate. Of course, it is the freedom fighter, the pro-liberty, anti-establishment candidate, Mr. Bob Bailey, versus Governor Asa Hutchinson's lobbyists pick, the Little Rock Marble Palace's pick, Breanne Davis. And it's going, ladies and gentlemen, I would just tell you, you do not need to take anything for granted. You need to get out there and you need to vote. You got to go vote. You got to let your voice be heard. The issues of the campaign are there. Michael Wickline of the Democrat Gazette did a good job of analyzing their difference on the bad tort reform bill, analyzing their difference on Arkansas Obamacare Works, analyzing their difference on the Second Amendment. He did a good job. There are more issues, but the bottom line is there has been a successful effort to distinguish between the two candidates, that there is a choice in what kind of leadership you're going to get. And I think that is evident. It's absolutely evident. I wish that Breanne Davis would have rescheduled to come on the program. We had Bob on many times. I would have loved to have had Breanne on the same amount of times. But Breanne scheduled to come on this program in December. She agreed to come on a Friday. She called and rescheduled, or she called and she said, she called and canceled. She called and I didn't take the call because I was away from my phone, but then I got a text message that said that she had to cancel and that she would get back in touch with this program at the beginning of the year. That never happened. But anyway, I wish that would have happened because I think that would have even made the choices even clearer. Instead, the only thing that the Conduit News was left to do was to compile statements and things like that, of fact and source, when it comes to what was said in public about this issue or that issue, and to report on those. But we clearly have different candidates that stand differently on the issues. And so I am happy for that. For District 16, I am happy and pleased that regardless of how it comes out, there was a clear difference, and I think in Bob Bailey, I think smaller government has a chance in Bob Bailey. That's what I think. The telephone number, 870-275-9799. It's 870-275-9799. You can also sound off. It's facebook.com/Conduit News. That's facebook.com/Conduit News. So we have challenges now pouring in. Hunter Fields, the Arkansas Democrat Gazette, people are starting to scrutinize the medical marijuana policies. Who could have possibly predicted this? Who gets what contract? Well, the government's going to decide. The government's going to pick winners and losers. That's what medical marijuana was all about. But people are now, reporting a flurry of challenges to the licensing of Arkansas's first medical marijuana growers. Continued to inundate state regulators on Monday. One unsuccessful applicant filed a letter of protest with the Arkansas Medical Marijuana Commission, requesting that it refrain from issuing cannabis cultivation licenses to the 5 highest scoring applicants because the scoring process was flawed. let me just tell you this right now. I said this yesterday, but this is the truth. You want to know the truth about medical marijuana? It was always about getting rich or making people who are already rich, who already have the capital to invest, making them more rich. That's what it was about, number one. It wasn't about helping kids with epilepsy. It wasn't even about recreational use, although this is a really a foot in the door in a dishonest way to smoking marijuana recreationally. This was about giving the government the power to pick winners and losers and make people rich. It also created a marijuana lobby in this state that now gets to contribute to political campaigns. That's what this was about. And to think that at some point, when you have 89 applications and 89 application fees, you're going to put up that kind of money, you're going to know that your application is good. You're going to know that it is what it needs to be. All the I's are dotted. All the T's are crossed. That's what's going to happen with most of these 89 applications. And so then we know what it comes down to, right? If all the applications are basically the same, which most of them are, I can guarantee you that. Now they're going to say, well, they're wanting to put them in different locations, and so we're looking at where the locations are, and blah 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 blah. Okay, yeah, I don't think the location really is going to matter that much. You know what I think matters more than location? Who your friend is. Who your friend is. And to think that this wasn't going to be the case is a level of naivete I can't even believe. I mean, if you're filing for, I don't believe in corruption and I don't believe in unethical behavior, but if somebody came up to me, if a friend of mine came up to me and, wanted to invest in medical marijuana or wanted to become a grower, I would have to ask them if they know someone. Who do you know? Okay, yeah, your application's going to be great. Yeah, I mean, that's going to be great. It's going to be, you've got the money to make the application be great. The next question would be, who do you know that's going to give you this? Because that's the only other way to determine this. To think that the Medical Marijuana Commission is going to hand out licenses to grow pot based solely on merit of the application is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. It's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. This whole thing is set up to reward your buddies. It's the way government works. It's especially the way Arkansas works. No pun intended there. I just didn't mean to say that way. Arkansas works. I guess we need to do a parody on that, Joe. By the way, how do we do a parody about trying to hire someone to kill another? How do you do a parody like that? Folks, if you're just joining us, you don't know, but Rusty Cranford is now being held on bond because they're claiming he tried to hire someone to murder a New Jersey lobbyist that was going to testify against him. You can't make this stuff up. How do we write a parody? It's supposed to be satirical. You're supposed to have an element of truth in the absurd, right? That's what we try to do with these parodies. How am I supposed to write a parody? How do you get more absurd than murder or attempted murder? I mean, don't get me wrong. We'll find a way. Life will find a way, as Ian Malcolm says. But it's very difficult. But we also need one on Arkansas works. This is how. The phrase needs to be, well, this is just how Arkansas works. To assume that it doesn't come down to who you know with the medical marijuana thing is naive. Tell me I'm wrong. Where would I be wrong here? Because the whole process is going to lend itself if this is a new thing and it's marijuana and there's all this money to potentially be made. At some point you get to a level of relativity or subjectivity where the person making the decision is going to use arbitrary measures because everybody's application is pretty much going to be the same. And their application fees are all going to be the same amount. And so it's like, okay, well, who do we choose? Well, I know this guy, he's my friend. I'll choose him. Other guy's like, yeah, I know this guy. He's my, longtime client of my law firm. Yep, we'll choose him. Of course, that's how people. I'm not saying they have no grounds. I'm not saying they have no grounds to file an ethics complaint or launch any kind of investigation. I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is, what did you expect with this process? I mean, what did you expect? Of course it was going to be what it is, which is who you know. And that's unfortunate that we created a government program that does not and will not, and there's really no way it can treat people equally under the law because of human nature. Right? There's just really no way this will ever be treating other people equal under the law. Telephone number again, 870-275-9799. We covered this article. It was a piece in, I think it was over at Talk Business, but now there's a Conduit for Action piece on this. You got to go check this out, conduitforaction.org. It was posted about 3 days ago, but it's still really, really good. Has to do with the wasteful spending and the state's quick action closing fund. Few Arkansas politicians are willing to buck the system and try to stop government waste. Senator Brian King, a Republican from Green Forest, is one legislator who is willing to take on the good old boy system. Senator King is proposing to end the Quick Action Closing Fund, which is a discretionary fund for the governor to hand out cash grants to businesses he chooses to help. Of course, the fiscal session's now over, folks, but he did propose this. The idea behind the fund is to give state funds to selected businesses to keep businesses or to attract businesses to Arkansas. A legislative committee reviews the governor's expenditures but cannot say no to the governor. Senator King says Arkansas can no longer afford to let the governor hand out money since there is no longer a big general revenue surplus, and he argues the money could be better spent on state needs such as highway maintenance and workforce training. In a subcommittee meeting, Senator King was supported by Jacob Bundrick, who is a policy analyst at the University of Central Arkansas Center for Research in Economics. Bundrick says there is reason to be skeptical of the Quick Action Closing Fund as a job creator at the county level. Empirical research by Acre found the subsidies have no meaningful relationship with the county level employment. In the 4-year period following the disbursement of those grants, there is no statistically significant increase or decrease in employment per 1,000 population in the county in which the subsidized project located. In addition, Acre's research did not find any job benefit in surrounding counties. Bundrick says the fund could negatively impact job creation, as a matter of fact. Quote, the cost of funding the subsidies may lead to higher taxes or decreases in other more productive public expenditures. Moreover, the artificial cost advantage the state provides favored firms may decrease business activity for existing companies. Arkansas's unsubsidized firms are forced to compete on a tilted field with the firms that state officials choose to subsidize. Mike Preston, who was also in this meeting, who is the Arkansas Economic Development Commission Executive Director, defended his agency's program, saying it had helped create over 20,000 jobs. How did Preston explain the difference between the numbers he threw out and the results of the research by Acre? He didn't. Instead, Preston attacked the credibility of Acre, claiming it is funded by special interests slanted against incentives. We address the credibility issue below and find several reasons to support Acre's credibility over Mike Preston's. About a week after the subcommittee hearing, Randy Zook, president and CEO of the Arkansas State Chamber of Commerce / Associated Industries of Arkansas, wrote an article to the Democrat Gazette to defend the Quick Action Closing Fund. Zook, by the way, Randy Zook's also a guy that says that parents shouldn't help their kids with their homework, which we don't have that audio on hand, but we need to remember to always pull that back up. Zook sidestepped the Acre research, which shows a lack of job creation, by claiming the program is not about job creation. Zook said, quote, in reality, the Quick Action Closing Fund by itself doesn't create jobs, but what it does do is help strengthen Arkansas's hand when it comes to landing and closing economic development projects. The purpose of the fund is not to create jobs, but rather to incentivize investment in the state when we may not be the top choice on paper. Zook's argument is wrong. His claim conflicts with the very law that created the fund. Section 2 of Act 510 of 2007 says, in part, it is found and determined by the General Assembly that losing business to other states may result in distressed economic conditions to the state of Arkansas, that a contingency fund should be created and funded for the purpose of attracting new business and retain existing business within the state of Arkansas, thereby maintaining and potentially increasing career and job opportunities for the citizens of this state. That's from the law, Randy. Although the Quick Action Closing Fund was sold to the legislature to keep and increase jobs, the Acre research found no measurable job creation. Now to the credibility of Jacob Bundrick and Acre versus Mike Preston. As you would expect, Mike Preston of the Arkansas Economic Development Commission defended use of the fund to give away incentives to those businesses chosen by the governor to be winners. But Preston went on to attack the credibility of Acre's research. Preston argued that Bundrick's team is funded by special interests slanted against incentives. Since Preston raised the issue of credibility, let's take a closer look, and you can make up your mind about who has the most credibility. Which special interests? Who do you trust more? A special interest that doesn't want corporate handouts, or B, special interests that want Preston and the governor to give them your tax money? Conduit for Action is not aware of how Acre is funded, but we included this question just for the sake of examining Preston's argument. Research scrutinized. The research by Bundrick and Acre and the team there was not just thrown out to the public without scrutiny. Before Bundrick testified at the hearing, the research by Acre team had been peer-reviewed and has been an accepted publication in the Review of Regional Studies. Who is taking the risk? What risk does Preston have in taking a pot shot at Acre on behalf of his governor's discretionary fund? Nothing. The Acre team is taking a risk by bucking the governor and his agencies. Acre is a program of the University of Central Arkansas. UCA is subject to pressure by governors. First, the governor appoints UCA Board of Trustee members. Second, as a public institution, UCA depends on state funding and the governor's recommendations for funding. Given that the Acre and his team or its team members are an arm of UCA and that the governor will not be happy with Acre's criticism of his discretionary fund to pick winners and losers, would you not think Acre team members are thoroughly convinced of its research before going out on a limb to criticize the fund? Remember, Mike Preston has a financial interest here too. Preston raises the issue of credibility, but remember, he has an interest in keeping the discretionary fund. First, Mike Preston was defending his agency and program. Second, his should be a fierce defense considering Preston's salary is listed on the Arkansas Transparency website as $149,861.92. Third, if that's not enough to get him motivated to defend his agency, consider this. In both 2016 and 2017, Preston received bonuses of over $50,000 from a private foundation, the Arkansas Economic Development Foundation. Speaking of special interests, do you wonder which special interests are paying his bonus through the foundation? How many state employees do you know who get an annual bonus of $50,000? How many state employees other than some coaches get a bonus from a private foundation? The issue here is not what Preston should or should not be paid, but his position and compensation are factors you must consider when he challenges the credibility of the Arkansas Center for Research and Economics. Preston's attack on the credibility of Acre's team may have worked in the subcommittee meeting where many of those present were either lobbyists or legislators who like giving away your tax money. However, common sense says that Bundrick's team's credibility stands out as being solid. There are two philosophies here. Number one, the government's attitude. We know best which businesses should win and which should lose, and government thinks it needs more of your tax money to guide the economy in this way. Then there's the fiscal conservative philosophy. Use our tax money more wisely and lower the high burden of taxes so that Arkansas businesses can grow and have an equal chance of success. Conduit for Action opposes the Quick Action Closing Fund and other discretionary funding given to Governor Hutchinson or to any governor to pick winners and losers. Such corporate welfare is given to a few at the expense of Arkansas business owners in general. Our local business owners suffer because Arkansas is a high-tax state. Instead of giving away tax money for favored businesses, lower taxes, and give local businesses a chance to grow. That's up right now at conduitforaction.org. Want to remind all of you out there in District 16, today is Election Day between the anti-establishment small government Bob Bailey and Governor Asa Hutchinson's and all the Little Rock lobbyist choice Breanne Davis. Make your decision accordingly. Today is the last day. Polls are open until 7:30. You're listening to Conduit News Radio. Back in a moment.
Protecting your business means protecting your data. But is your business really prepared to handle the growing threat of things like cybercriminals and ransomware? At iTex, they're committed to deploying the best security solutions to protect your business and your bottom line. Security threats are constantly evolving. So are security needs. Be proactive now and equip your business with the best cybersecurity available with iTex. Call them today for a free consultation at 870-336-9778. That's 870-336-9778 or itexusa.com. If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is building a liberty machine. Find out more at conduitnews.com.
So as we close things down here, I know I've been harping on this all day. Doug Thompson with a huge story off of the Arkansas Online. Filing accuses lobbyist of murder for hire plot. It has to do with lobbyist Rusty Cranford, who was arrested back in February, but in January he tried to have Don Jones of New Jersey, who had already pled guilty and was going to testify against Rusty Cranford, murdered. According to FBI, according to this document, they've got recordings of it. This is nuts, folks, but it shows you the type of environment you're sending politicians into. And this just broke today. This is mafia-level stuff. And it's ironic because you'd think New Jersey would be sending people down here to kill Arkansas politicians or lobbyists, and instead we got Arkansas lobbyists trying to kill New Jersey lobbyists because that's just how we roll, I guess. I don't know. In all seriousness, though, this is really, really, this is a big deal. And I just kind of am relieved that this is now out in the news. I'm relieved that we now know the level of corruption that's in Arkansas politics, the lengths that people are willing to go, that starts with just the simple theft of your taxpayer dollars, which is terrible in and of itself, but then it goes into murder or attempted murder. The environment down there is extremely corrupt. So be mindful who you send into it. It is a machine down there itself. We're building a liberty machine. They have a machine of corruption and money and revolving door from lobbyist to politician to lobbyist to consultant, and they will chew up anybody that gets in their way, or they'll try to. You got to know who you're sending down there. You got to just recognize the environment and how corrupt it is, and we have that evidence right in today's headlines. It's crazy.
Well, even that, not even just that, like people who go down there, like people who they want to come down here or come down there, that they're like, hey, we want you to be here. If they're thinking they're going down there, oh, we're going to try to make a difference, but they're still appointed by the governor, they get chewed up and spit out just as quickly.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Anyway, it's like something out of a movie. So listen to this. He's in Philadelphia. He's in South Jersey, whispered. This is a quote from the audio the FBI has. He's in Philadelphia. He's in South Jersey, whispered Cranford. He needs to go away. He needs to be gone. It's also said when he did that, he made a fake hand gesture with a gun. You know, the kind of stuff they send 6-year-olds home for now when you're in the first grade. Anyway, then he offered him $500. Anyway, the FBI was monitoring it the whole time. That is, it's Arkansas politics, folks. A lot of money involved. $2 billion windfall. District 16. Got to go vote. We'll see you tomorrow.